Hi guys, Mary Beth Temple here, and in this video I want to talk about weaving in ends, because here's the thing. You finish your project, you've ended it off, and you have left yourself a nice long tail. You have to hide that tail, and you want to weave it in a specific way so that it doesn't pull out, causing your work to either become unraveled or leaving you a little ugly bit where the tail's hanging out. So let's take a closer look at weaving in ends. In my opinion, the best way to weave in an end is to use a tapestry needle or a yarn needle. Now, what makes this needle different from other types of needles is two things. One, it has a pretty big eye. The eye is the opening in the needle, and we need it to be pretty big to get that yarn in there. And the other is it has a blunt tip. You do not want a pointy, sharp tip like you would if you were sewing fabric, because you don't necessarily want the point of the needle to split the ply to go into the body of the yarn. You want to sort of have it float in between. Now, this is a bent needle because that's what I like. You don't have to have a bent needle. You can do whatever you prefer. So you've cut your tail. You've left yourself a nice long tail to weave in, because it's always better to have too much yarn to weave in than not enough, because a short tail pulls out. So I'm just going to go ahead and thread that. And you may have noticed I did it out of habit, but let's talk about it. This is a bulky yarn and a pretty big needle because I use bigger tools on camera so you can see what I'm doing. But you may notice that what I did is I took my thumbnail and I sort of squished it flat. And I did that so that it'll pop right in there. Now, of course, it doesn't want to because here we are on camera. But yes, it just went right in. You can always use a needle threader if you have one laying around. So this is just a swatch of crocheted fabric. You want to keep your end being woven into the wrong side of the work. So let's just pretend it's this side for the sake of argument. What I like to do is hide the yarn inside the stitch. So I'm sort of following around where the stitch is. And you can see, remember I was talking about that blunt tip? I'm not trying to split the yarn, because that, when you pull that yarn through, that gets super irritating and lumpy, and you don't want to do that. So you want to sort of trace some other threads that were in the stitch. These are double crochets, just for the record. And so I want to give that a tug, but I don't want to pull it too tight, because watch, if I pull it too tight, I'm going to lose the height of the stitch, so I don't want to do that. And then I might swing over here. I'm going to go up and down a couple of times. Now, can you crochet over ends when you're crocheting? Yes, and I often do. However, sometimes it's simply not enough. So sometimes you can crochet over your ends, and then you still might want to go back in with your needle and move that end up and down a couple of times. And this is enough. You don't have to do this for 87 inches. You know what I mean? You just have to make sure that it's not going to pull out easily. So there it is on my double crochets, and you can't see it on the other side. Now, can you see it a little bit on the top? Yes. And if I was not going to put in edging, maybe I wouldn't have come all the way up to the top of the stitch. If I am going to put in edging, or that's going to be in a seam, then who cares? Nobody's going to see it. I can cover that up. Again, let's just talk ever so briefly about crocheting over. So if I was to crochet over an end, say I was changing color and I was crocheting over an end, it would be here, right? It would be under those stitches, and it would be parallel to the row. You can see it a little bit. It's not terrible. For the double crochet, I would definitely do it the way I showed you first. Say I was doing single crochet, which doesn't have a lot of height, and I did need to go under the row. What I might do is go under the row for a little bit and then go down to the next row and come back so that there is a curve in the yarn. What you do not want is just a straight piece of yarn that can get snagged on something and pull right out and unravel. But it's definitely more of an art than a science. Remember that weaving in ends is more of an art than a science. But if you take the tips that I just gave you, you'll be able to do it nicely and hide those tails in your work. I'm Mary Beth Temple. Looking forward to seeing you again here real soon. Bye-bye.